Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I hope you all are doing absolutely well. So guys, in today's video, we are going to discuss about another important hook in React, which is useMemo hook. So in the previous video, we have already seen pure component in React. So pure component we use in class-based component, and the similar functionality if we have to achieve in functional component, we use useMemo hook. Whereas the way of using both is different, because in class component we just have to directly import pure components, but in useMemo the concept is different. So I'm going to explain this complete concept in detail in this video. So let's see first of all the points that we are going to cover in this video. First, we will see what is the problem that we are going to solve with useMemo hook. Then secondly, we will see the concept of memoization and what exactly is useMemo hook. Then we will read about the syntax of useMemo hook, and then we will go to our code editor and use useMemo hook in our code. Okay, and finally we are going to see an interview question based on this topic. So let's get started. But before starting, if you are not aware, I have created a complete playlist on React. So if you have not yet accessed that, please make sure to check it. And also, whatever the code that I am doing in this video, you can get it by going to my GitHub repository, which is React tutorial, and you have to go to the commit section here, and you will find the video number and name of the video, according to which you can get the code. So now let us see the today's topic, which is our useMemo hook. So first of all, let us see what is the problem that we have that we are trying to solve with this hook. Okay, so in the life cycle of a component, React re-renders the component when an update is made. Okay, when React checks for any change in a component, the React application will cause it to re-render unnecessarily. If one part re-renders, it re-renders the entire component tree. So basically, we know the working of React component, right? So what happens is, in React component, there are many things, there are many functions, and there are many states. So for example, if a function is using a state and that states gets changed, so that function will be called. Okay, and it doesn't matter whether the change is a big change or a small change, it will make the entire React component to re-render, so which cause expensive operation. Sometimes we don't even want the all the rest of the parts of the component to re-render. We just want that this specific function or this specific state to re-render. Okay, so now this is the problem, that is, if one part re-renders, it re-renders the entire component tree. Okay, now what is the concept of memoization? So memoization is an optimization technique that is generally used to speed up the computer programs by storing the result of expensive function calls and returning the cached results when the same inputs occur again. So for example, if we have a function which is for computing 1 plus 1, it will return 2. Okay, but if it is using memoization, the next time we run once through the function, which means that the next time we get both the inputs as 1 and 1, it won't even add them up, because it already knows for these inputs I have already cached my result, which is 2, right? So it will just remember the answer is 2 without executing the additional functionality. Okay, like it won't perform the adding function, it will just see the input, and based on this it will already remember or memorize that if I get 2 ones, the output should be 2, right? So in this way memoization basically works. Now, how memoization is helpful in useMemo hook, we will see that. So useMemo hook is a hook in React that memoizes the result of a function and reuses it when the dependencies haven't changed. In simpler terms, it helps us avoid unnecessary recalculation. So we can consider the same example, like if we have a function where we have two inputs, and if the inputs are same always, then it will not waste time in performing extensive calculation. It will just simply give the cached results. So useMemo provides us this memoization advantage. Now let us look at the syntax of the useMemo hook. So in useMemo, like basically this is the syntax. Okay, so we create a constant, and this constant can be our function, you can say, or it can just be a normal constant, and then you have to write useMemo. useMemo itself is a function. So in that, the first parameter is like the function that computes the memoized value. This function will only be re-rendered if any of the dependencies change. So as we have seen in the use effect hook, right, we have dependencies. So here also we will have dependencies. So if any of the dependencies change, then only this function will be calculated. So if the dependencies are same, then there is no need to recalculate it every time. It will just give the whatever the cached value it has. Okay, memoized value. So this is the syntax of useMemo. Now let us go to our code editor because we have learned a lot about it. Okay, now we will try to implement all these things in action. So for example, as we already know, use memo is a concept of our functional component. So I'm just going to create a functional component here. Okay, and initially I'm just going to create this. Okay, now so to see our example, we need states first of all. So I'm going to make use of use state hook, and I'm going to create two states basically. Both will be of type counter. Okay, you will get to know what I'm doing in just a minute. So we will just see how use memo works and where exactly do we need it. So use state, and the first the value of the first state I'm setting, initializing it with 0, and similarly I'm going to create another state, and this is going to be called as data, set data, and here I'm going to initialize it with 10. Okay, so we have created two states. Now what we are going to do is we are going to create two buttons, okay, on our DOM. So first button will say update count. Okay, in the similar way we will have one more button which will say update data. Now we will run the on click event handlers to update the values. So in the first one we are going to set the count value, so count plus 1, simply one, we will increment one value each time. In the second one we are just going to increment it or by multiplying it by 10. Okay, so in this way we can write it. So set data and data multiplied by 10. Okay, so this is basically what we are doing in as of now. Now we will also show the values. What is the value of count and data? So first of all, h2 data, first we will show count. Okay, at what given time what is the value of count and what is the value of data, so that we will show. So count I have shown, and the similar way data also. Okay, so this is very basic functionality which we have written. As of now we have not used anywhere use memo or anything. We are just seeing what we have to achieve for that. So I'll also open my console because I'm going to console log few things. So first of all, let us see whether the basic functionality is working or not. So update count has to increase our count value by 1, and data has to increase the count value by multiplying it with 10. So this is basically is working. Okay, so now let us see where exactly our use memo comes into place. Okay, so for example, what if I have a function? Okay, so here in my code, if I had a function which has its some use, okay, because in complex projects or apps we have different functions, right? So for example, I have this function calculate. Okay, and this calculate function, the work of this calculate function is to return count multiplied by 5, you can say. Okay, so this is the work of this function. Now what I want is I also want to show the output of this function on the screen basically. So I'm also going to do is calculate value. Okay, and here we are just going to call that function, okay, which is calculate. C should be capital. So basically, let us suppose that we have one function in our code which is performing some functionality based on the value that it is getting for count. Okay, now we are showing that value on the screen. So let us see. So if you see, I'm increasing update count and the calculate value is also increasing based on the function. Okay, now if you notice here, I have not written any console log. So I'll show you by writing the console log in this function that when exactly this function gets called. Okay, console.log, and how it is rendering our component. Okay, calculate function called. So I'm going to refresh it. So initially it will get called because our component renders for the first time. Then when I'm updating its count value, every time this function gets called, because this is obvious, this has to be done because in function we are making use of count value, so this is expected. But if you see, when I update the data value, again this function is getting called every single time. This is not needed, right? Because our that function is not dependent on this data. Then why are we calling that function over and over again? There is no need for doing that, because for in actual project our functions are very complex, okay? And if the same function we are rendering again and again, then it will impact the performance of our apps, right? So for that reason, what we can use is we can use useMemo hook. Okay, so how can we implement this functionality using useMemo hook? So what we need to do is I can write const and the function name like calculate, okay, and then equals to useMemo. So this is the syntax that we have just seen. So in the useMemo, we have to first of all write a function which will be like this one, okay? Our this whole thing we will write here, and the second one is our dependency, okay? So for example, in this case my dependency is just count, so I can just mention that I don't want it to update it anytime, I just want it to get updated when only the count value is getting updated. Now here, since this time we have made calculate as a count, calculate as a constant, so here I can just remove those things and just make it like this. So there is one error, let me see. So useMemo also we have to import first, so I'm also going to import useMemo here. So update count, okay, it is calling. Now previously you can see now it is not calling based on the update data because we have given a dependency, okay? So that's why. So now I hope you have understood what is the importance of useMemo. Now there might be some confusions for you guys, like, you know, this is the same functionality that we were achieving through use effect 2, right? So yeah, that is correct. Like it is, you know, it depends on the use case. What is your use case? Where exactly do you want to use? So if, for example, if you want to achieve this exact same functionality, we can achieve it using use effect also. But we have just now seen in the explanation that the what is the main use of useMemo is memoization. So whenever you want to achieve memoization or performance improvement in your code, then you have to basically majorly use useMemo hook, okay? And useMemo hook has a dependency array which is like similar to use effect, and that like it depends what is your use case, okay? So I hope now you have clearly understood what is the exact procedure of useMemo. And now we have one more interview question, so with that you will exactly understand when to use which hook, okay? So the interview question for today is, what is the difference between useMemo and use callback? So as of now we have not seen use callback hook separately, but let me explain you what is use callback hook. So in addition to useMemo, there is also a hook called as use callback and use effect, okay? Like how do we have useMemo, right? We have similarly use effect, then we have use callback. So useMemo and use callback are very similar, okay? You might get confused what is the difference between them. So in addition to useMemo, there is also hooks called as use callback and use effect, which can be used in similar kind of situations. The use callback hook is similar to useMemo, but it returns a memoized function rather than the memoized value. Okay, so this is the most important part. Like, what is the difference between use callback and use memo? So useMemo returns a memoized value, whereas use callback returns the entire memoized function only. Okay, so let's see that you can see this example of code. So this is first example is for useMemo. So whenever we are doing useMemo, it will only return the value that this function returns, okay, and it will only memoize that value. But whenever we use callback, it will memoize the entire function itself. So you know, it won't even have to take care about the values. It will just it will remember the entire function what it is doing. So that is the major difference. Like use memo returns only the memoized value, but use callback returns the memoized function. Now the third point is, if your dependencies array is not provided, for example, in any case you are not using your dependency array or there is no dependency array, then there is no possibility of memoization, right? Because memoization only happens when there is a dependency on any state. For example, in our case the dependency was with count state, right? So if there is no dependency array, then there is no possibility of memoization, and it will compute a new value on every render. So in this reason, you can go ahead with the use effect. So this is the same thing which I have explained you just now. So our example was like that only, right? So since we have the dependency array, for example, if we don't have any dependency, right? If we had if we would have just a normal function. So in that case, we could also have gone with use effect. And even in this thing what we have achieved, this also we could have achieved using use effect. But the major concept of using use memo is to have memoized values. So I hope this video have made much more clarity for you when to use which hook. And basically React has a lot of hooks. It is like you have to understand all of them, and based on your use case you have to make use of them. So let me know if you have any questions around this. You can post it in the comment section, I can answer it. And if you are new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, and if you haven't checked the other videos in the playlist yet, make sure to do so. Thanks for watching the video, and I will see you in next video.